The fight of the night actually went to these two right here, brother. And we got a little bit of controversy on our hands. The blonde fighter, number one ranked contender in the flyweight division, Katlyn Chookagian. She squeaks out a split decision win against the number 9 ranked in the strawweight division, Amanda Ribas. How does this happen? How does someone move up to fight the number 1 contender in the weight class above and arguably win in the eyes of the fans? Now, AJ, I told you while the mics were cold, you were like, hey, man, what did you think of that? And I was like, well, I thought Chookagian won, and I still think Chookagian won. This is not because I picked her on a points basis for the prop. It's not because I picked her on a money line. It's not because I picked her in general. It's because I think that the criteria for judging in the eyes of the fans especially is so backwards these days, man. When I had to get off Twitter while I was watching the fight because I was like, you people are fucking crazy, like what people were saying. Robbery. Ribas clearly won that fight. 30-27 Ribas. I'm just like, bro, like what fight are y'all watching? What is more effective, AJ? This is the question that we need to answer. This is basically the philosophical inquiry of the day. So what is more important to you in the span of a fight in terms of what you were judging? Is it damage? Is it control? Is it takedowns? Is it effective striking? Like what is number one of all of those 4 things? Damage, control, takedowns, and effective striking. What's the most important in your eyes?
For me, has to be damage, man. Has to be damage. That's what's going on. You getting pieced up, all the time. Your face is getting lumped up. Well, the other guy, he's slick. He's moving. He's not getting touched. To me, that's that, man. That's kind of the next one. After that, I'd say takedowns and then control time. And, then you can, I guess those last ones you can differ a little bit on. But for me, damage. What about you?
But where's effective striking in there? Is it effective striking last? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it second? Because for me personally, I go damage, I go effective striking, and then I go takedowns, and control is last. Control is the last in my book because at the end of the day, the takedown and the control are kind of intertwined, like you said, right? And then you kind of intertwine the damage in there too, because if you get a takedown and you do no damage, well, how big is that takedown? Yes, it counts for something, but does it count as much as you damaged up your opponent, you dropped them or something like that? Like, no, of course not. So damage number 1, number 2 for you, what?
Man, I'd probably, as much as it hurts to say as a striker, I'd say takedowns, and control. I think the effective striking comes into play in like a chess match sort of way, almost how control time does for me. If you're on the ground, you're kind of in this chess match battle, sure. Then you go down to control time because it's more of a stalemate. Same thing if you're in a stalemate on the feet in this chess battle, nobody's really landing big damage, but everybody's just kind of pitter-pattering around each other. That's kind of where effective striking lands for me. Okay. I mean, I hate to see somebody just get points on takedowns alone because I don't think that's the case. You should have to damage them or at least hold them down a little bit to make that case, to make the points. But I'd say takedowns, man. I think it does as much as, like I said, as much as it hurts, it does impact the fight a lot more.
Well, then let's look at this from a statistical aspect then. Katlyn Chookagian outstrikes Amanda Ribas in terms of significant strikes 63-55, right? Chookagian threw more. She landed more. Ribas threw less, landed less, but she ended up throwing less overall in total strikes and landing more total strikes. So 84-71 in favor of Ribas in terms of total strikes. But who was getting their head popped back the whole fight? Whose face was all busted up at the end of the fight? It was Ribas. You know what I mean? All the big moments in terms of striking, the big moments were in favor of Katlyn Chookagian. There was a couple for Ribas, but all the big moments. I'm talking about the 1-2 down the pipe, boom, heads. That was all Chookagian. 3 of 6 takedowns were successful for Amanda Ribas, with 4 minutes and 49 seconds of control time. Now that counts for something. However, AJ, we got to talk about it because when Amanda Ribas gets Katlyn Chookagian down with that head and arm toss, very Montserrat Ruiz-esque, right? She gets the head and arm, she gets her down. Does she do a lot of damage? Is she doing a bunch of ground and pound? No. Katlyn Chookagian, she gets a hook over, she tries to take the back, she slips out, she gets up, and she gets back to the feet. And that happened literally again, same exact sequence, and then it happened again. So I was just like, okay, if Amanda Ribas had got to mounts and dropped elbows and throwing big ground and pound, yes, of course, that is very meaningful, and that wins you the round. But people were saying that it's a robbery that Ribas lost the fight because, oh, look, she took her down and she controlled her for, almost 5 minutes of the fight. That's a third of the fight, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, yeah, but Chookagian boxed her up the rest of the fight. So if we're talking about a fight, I thought Chookagian won fair and square, and I thought that it was 29-28 in favor of Chookagian. I thought that Ribas stole the third round, but I had Chookagian winning rounds 1 and 2, personally. That's the way that I saw it, because the moments that Ribas had the takedowns, I felt like were overshadowed by Chookagian being able to get back up to her feet and effectively outstrike and land the bigger shots on Amanda Ribas. But once again, AJ, you know my theory, or not my theory, my preference. My preference for judging is if you're going to take somebody down, you have to damage them for it to truly count, to win a round, truly. Unless you're just controlling them the whole entire round, and then obviously there's nothing else the fighter can do. But long-winded rant aside, do you have any issues with the way that I judge the fight? Do you have any issues with my outlook on how this prospective match went down?
There's a couple different things that I like and have a little contention with what you're saying in there, and I'm gonna try to remember them all because yeah, the whole damage control thing, I agree, and I see where you're going with the numbers. You know, Amanda Ribas, she did, you know, was the one getting her head snapped back a little bit more, was kind of the one not necessarily controlling the fight on the feet, but she was, sure, she had the pressure. But Chookagian was just looking better in the striking exchanges. Now, that being said, we expected Chookagian to be the longer, the rangier, the one that's doing exactly that to Ribas, and Ribas was willing to walk through that and get it to the inside and then get the takedowns and that control. And to me, as much as that damage of Chookagian was mattering, I think the fact that Ribas knew she had to get on the inside, eat the shots to, you know, execute the game plan matters somewhat a little bit more to me. You know, that's the one nuance in there. Like, did we expect X, Y, and Z to happen, but A, B, and C did? Kind of weighs a little bit more, and that's a hard one to judge. You know, that's a tangible that is very unpalpable. You know, you can't grab that one. Not everybody's going to feel the same way about that one. And when this fight was going on, man, I watched it the first time. I thought Chookagian won. I was like, oh, okay, but I gave Chookagian the second and the third. So opposite of you. I thought Amanda Ribas won the first one. She had more strikes. She was on the front foot. She had the takedown, the control time. The majority of the control time came from that first round. So that's kind of where I had Ribas winning it. Okay. And then I was like, okay, online, everybody thinks Ribas is, you know, should have won the fight. It was a robbery. Like, okay, let me go back and watch this one again. I watched this one this morning. And I still think Chookagian did enough to win, but because Ribas didn't do enough to win, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, either one of them could have won that fight. Either one of them could have lost that fight. I'm cool with it, however it goes. It just Katlyn Chookagian did a little bit more because I don't count that last takedown and that last flurry, of Amanda Ribas to really matter that much. So I see what you're saying, and I agree with you on that one. Like, yeah, she did get the takedown. Yeah, a little bit extra control time, maybe like 10 more seconds. But then Katlyn Chookagian just got up. There's no real damage there. So I'm in agreement, in contention sometimes, but not really, because I do think the right woman won. Yeah. It was just a real interesting fight, you know?
No, I think that's fair. Because we both see it differently. However, at the end of the day, we agree the right person won. Katlyn Chookagian, she got the job done. She gets the win. Like I said, it's guaranteed. Death, taxes, Katlyn Chookagian by decision. I mean, come on. However, fight of the night. Now, I wonder if the odds of Chookagian winning a fight of the night would probably be astronomical, plus 1,000 or something like that. Here's the big question that I have for you. Do you think that Amanda Ribas could have been solidified in a win if she maybe would have gone for some submission attempts? That's the thing that was missing to me. There was no submission attempts, literally, between either fighter. Like, you had her on the ground, at least try to threaten an armbar, threaten a guillotine, threaten something, you know what I mean? But given that you didn't threaten anything, really, and there was like no fear of the fight ending. There was no fight ending sequences on the ground. I thought that was kind of what gave Chookagian the favor too. Either way, this was very, very impressive. But what do you make of that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think because Chookagian was defending so well and was threatening to take the back, that's why Ribas wasn't able to get off any submissions. Yeah. More credit to Chookagian on that one. It's the same thing that if a takedown, just because your cheeks hit the mat, that means a point. I think it should also be a point when you stand up and you don't let that guy, take you down. It's almost like you go 1 for 1. It's a wash, So
yeah. No, I feel you. That kind of goes into the Rose Namajunas aspect though, where she's like, shouldn't I get points for playing defense? And it's like, well, no, actually you shouldn't. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to play defense. But either way, a win is a win is a win. The blonde fighter gets another one on the board.